Hello, everyone. This is Craig with Huntress. Today, I'm here to talk to you a little bit more about the Huntress product, which is part of the WAMS ManagedCare Threat Detection package. Our mission here at Huntress is to provide real cybersecurity threat hunting for 99% of companies who currently aren't doing it. A few quick facts to get us started. Huntress is a security platform that provides persistence threat hunting as a service, which puts us into a broader managed detection and response category. We provide the security expertise and deliver reports digestible for IT teams without all the unnecessary alerts. We serve more than 25,000 customers, 1,800 partners, and have over 500,000 agents deployed today. Here's what I'd like you to ultimately walk away with from this session. Huntress hunts for persistent threats that your preventative software consistently misses. Huntress is complementary to your existing security stack. And also, Huntress is purposefully affordable in accordance with our mission, which is to provide security for the 99% of companies who can't afford all of the proper controls. Let's start with a look at ransomware and how this relates specifically to our audience today. The industry is seeing an increase in the number of ransomware attacks, especially targeting industries such as law firms and the professional services industry. This is a very real problem that's only going to continue to grow. Some of the statistics include an average ransom payment of over $220,000, an average downtime of more than 23 days, and 77% of ransomware attacks also include a threat to leak the stolen data onto the open internet. Here's some data from Coveware, a company who specializes in helping companies recover from ransomware attacks, with some very interesting statistics. Here we see the most common ransomware attack vectors, RDP and phishing, take the top spots for attack vectors an overwhelming majority of the time, which highlights the need for better security practices and software. We often get the objection from small businesses that, well, we're not really a threat. What do we have of value to an attacker? Turns out it doesn't really matter what vertical you're in. Ransomware gangs are opportunistic. You can see this on the chart. You can see on this chart that the professional services sector accounts for more than 25% of targets by ransomware over this time period. We'll loop back around to ransomware in a bit, but let's discuss why you should care about hunting for persistence in the first place. It's because persistence is the most important and ubiquitous part of the attack chain that people don't typically really understand. Security researcher John Hammond estimates that over 90% of all successful domain-wide ransomware attacks include persistence as the first part of the steps in the attack chain. So if this is a known thing, why aren't we all doing something about it? Frankly, it's because expelling persistence has to involve humans who know how to actually find it in the first place. As Gartner points out in their writings on threat hunting, effective threat hunting is incredibly rare due to its reliance on uniquely skilled personnel. Only a few companies in the defense industrial base and financial services boast productive threat hunting teams that deliver results. So in reality, less than 1% of companies on the planet have threat hunters on staff who can go toe-to-toe with talented attackers. So without these threat hunters on your team, how should we try and prevent domain-wide attacks to the fullest? We should be creating policies from something like the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, then map behaviors and products to the necessary controls. Look at all of these things that we should all be doing if resources weren't a concern. But what are we actually doing? We usually have a cybersecurity stack that looks something like this, where most of the budget is spent on preventative measures like AV and firewalls, and on recovery measures like backup and disaster recovery solutions. So why don't many companies do more in detection and response? Well, it's really expensive, and you have to actually know what you're doing. All of your security software tools are preventative automation. Huntress is post-prevention, so we're hunting for attackers who have already made it past your automated protections and have already compromised your systems. When you think about it, it's obvious that humans have to be in the loop on this. As you move through the NIST framework, technology gives way to people in terms of degree of dependency. Specifically with detect, respond, and recover, you can't take humans out of the process and expect positive results. Relying on software as your only method of detection and response has the exact same limitation as preventative solutions. So don't let a label fool you. Unless humans are involved in the detection and response, what you have is a pre-compromised software tool. When what you need is a qualified threat operations engineers who can hunt for, find, and expel the advanced persistent threats that preventative software doesn't have a chance at stopping. Expelling previously unknown threats gives organizations a second chance at stopping business-altering breaches before the attackers can cause any real damage. And I'm sure this is the part where you might be thinking, I pay a lot of money for a next-gen AV or an EDR, and they tell me I'm covered. Well, there's a lot of taglines that they say: safe from all new existing threats, defeating every attack every second, every day. If these claims were true, you'd be protected from everything. There'd be no point to worrying about having anything in the detection, response, or recovery categories, not having any of those measures in place. But we all know that isn't necessarily the reality of the situation. Case in point, in early March, when malicious web shells were getting dropped on unpatched on-prem Exchange servers where AV and EDR were installed, they weren't making a peep about this. This type of thing happens all the time. Huntress was all over this. We sent critical reports to all of our customers and called our partners urging them to patch. What all offensive security experts know, and therefore what all attackers know, is that security prevention software tools miss well-known threats about 50% of the time. Despite what AV companies might lead you to believe, this isn't a new problem. For generations now, the AV industry has focused their efforts on building better mousetraps and spending billions of dollars on advertising to make you believe the newest trap is worth what they're charging. If you put out traps, you will catch some mice. But once they're in the house, the smart mice will still find a way to get the cheese, whether there's a trap or not. What you really need is an exterminator to be able to hunt down and destroy the nest and remove their footholds into your home. So while preventative security software doesn't find or expel persistent footholds, Huntress hunts down and helps exterminate the attacker persistence that your preventative tools aren't able to detect. When your AV blocks something, that's great. It's done its job exactly as intended. But we're there to find and expel threats that it's never even aware of because it can't detect them. What you see here is a snippet from the MITRE Attack Enterprise Matrix. It highlights many attacker tactics, techniques, and procedures. The threat hunting that our founders did while they were serving the country at the NSA had no limitations. Their hunts went wherever their hypotheses took them, but they also had all of the resources of the US government at their disposal. In order to productize threat hunting and make it more affordable, we had to narrow our focus. So from their experience, they know that as an attacker, if your persistent access to an environment is removed, which just means your access doesn't survive a simple reboot or a password change, then the jig's up. Your cover's blown. It's time to move on to an easier target. After the break-in, establishing a persistent foothold is the attacker's top priority. They go to great lengths to keep it hidden because without it, the rest of the attack falls apart. Not often can an attacker go from recon to domain-wide payload execution without detection in a single session. If you were to search for a definition of persistence, you'll get a pretty clear description from MITRE. Forgive me for reading, but this is important. Adversaries use persistence to keep access to systems across restarts, change credentials, and other interruptions that could cut off their access. Techniques used for persistence include any access action or configuration changes that let them maintain their foothold on systems, such as replacing or hijacking legitimate code or adding startup code. But how many of these can there be? It should be pretty easy to spot, right? Well, there are hundreds of auto-starting components of Windows, commonly referred to as auto runs, that are running on your PCs right now and at any given point in time, and they're virtually never investigated. From an attacker's point of view, that's great. They can play in here for months and you'd never know. But it also works from a hunting perspective. If you're one of the few humans on the planet who know what to look for, you can hunt for imposter auto runs without understanding organizational context. And there are always plenty to hunt through. It's not uncommon to see between 800 and 2,000 auto-running components of Windows per operating system. But where do these things actually come from? Well, how many times have you sat through a software installation? Under that pretty little progress bar, the installation is creating new files, folders, scheduled tasks, run keys, services, etc. This is all a normal part of using computers. Every month, Windows updates your machine and dozens of new auto-running items are created, but not all auto runs are good. Unfortunately, if you click on the wrong link online or in an email, enable the wrong macro, run the wrong installer, that can add startup code to your PC as well. And those auto runs aren't as easy to find or get rid of. Again, you might be thinking, I have an EDR that covers this. I should be protected. Well, preventative security tools are focused on blocking things that show up on top of Windows, things that are written to disk. So advanced threats have evolved to live in the Windows operating system, in the registry and memories, and place where your preventative tools can't block things without the risk of corrupting and shutting down the OS itself. If it does that, then it risks having a blue screen of death, and you'd probably want to uninstall that tool. But that's also what makes this a perfect place for attackers to play. AV providers won't take the risk of corrupting the operating system, so they simply whitelist the entire category of underlying OS components. Huntress is a combination of software, proprietary detections, and incredibly rare people. Once installed, the agent gathers information about every single auto-starting component on the Windows system and uploads it to the Huntress cloud every 15 minutes, allowing us to monitor incremental changes. We process that data first through proprietary detection layer to find only known to Huntress footholds enabled by results from previous hunts. Then we have the incredibly rare individuals on our threat ops team that they diligently hunt through all unknown or otherwise suspicious auto runs to find attacker persistence dwelling in your systems. When they do, they send a detailed incident report to your email or ticketing system with the relevant remediation steps. Probably the most dire need in cybersecurity for 99% of companies is security experts to augment their security software tools. Trickbot is a common tool used during malicious attacks. Let's look at the difference of a Trickbot infection without Huntress and then with Huntress. The Trickbot group specializes in phishing as their delivery mechanism of choice. In this particular case, some poor soul got a phishing email that looked relevant enough to click on. When they did, it ran the initial malware dropper. Already, again, you might be thinking, well, we already spend money to get a next-gen AV every month. There's no way that this would get past my antivirus. Well, this is a real-life example. The specific malware in this file was used in an attack on September 28th, 2020. In November, 2 months after the attack, after it was a known bad hash in the industry, how many antivirus engines would probably stop this? We'd be thinking 100%, right? Well, let's take a look. Same file and hash that was used in the attack, almost 2 months after the attack, and only 1 out of 69 virus engines would flag this file as malicious. Remember, AV, next-gen AV, EDR, these are all very necessary tools. You do need those, but all of them miss things like this on a daily basis. You also need preventative security software, but they won't save you from all new and existing attacks like many of their websites claim. So continuing our persistence journey now, we see that the malware creates a scheduled task. This scheduled task itself is actually the mechanism of persistence because it's scheduled to run every time the PC runs. The scheduled task runs a batch script. Again, you might think that the batch script would be something that AV stops. However, in this case, it doesn't. AVs are batting 0 on this one. After your AV doesn't catch the exe file, after your AV doesn't catch the bat file, the payload is free to run. I'm not a software engineer, but I can tell you that part at the bottom is not normal code. That code is really a Trickbot affiliate. The Trickbot family is predominantly a precursor to Emotet and then Ryuk ransomware. Ryuk average time to ransom is under 5 days, sometimes as little as 5 hours. And this isn't a purely academic exercise either. This is an example that's extrapolated from the UHS attack last September. From the moment their phishing link was clicked, it took them 11 minutes to gain initial and persistent access, and then took another hour to do recon and exfil the data. The attackers then went quiet for 24 hours. On day 2, they took 3 hours and 22 minutes to spread throughout the network and drop their ransomware packages. The hospital network's IT systems were down for 21 days, and the ransom was set at $6 million. Now let's take a look at Trickbot with Huntress actively hunting for persistence. With Huntress hunting, the malware runs within minutes it creates the persistent scheduled task. That's where the Huntress threat ops team takes action. Not today, sir. Do not pass go. Do not encrypt for 200 Bitcoin. Instead, Huntress provides a report that shows exactly what the issue is, exactly where it's located, the other security products installed on the device, exactly how to get rid of it, and we even have an easy button if you don't have the time to do it yourself. The Trickbot infection with Huntress is also a real-life example. It was from a customer of an MSP of ours. The customer was a 28-employee construction company. Had the MSP not had Huntress to send them the report on the initial Trickbot infection, this could easily have led to a domain-wide ransomware for that organization. It would have cost them over $200,000 according to all of our tools and calculations. If they decided to take legal action against the MSP, this could have turned into a years-long debacle. Instead, it took under 10 minutes to remediate, and the cost of downtime saved is astounding. Using Huntress is outsourcing your detection and response categories to a group of offensive hackers, which give you a second chance at stopping incidents on your endpoints that make it past your protections before they become a more widespread breach. Our founders, Kyle, Chris, and John, met during their time in the intelligence community. It was their job during their decade tenure at the NSA to carry out extremely sophisticated cyber warfare on the targets they were assigned. They helped create some of the exploits and persistent techniques that they're helping Huntress customers expel from their systems today. Our founder's offensive expertise is behind our threat operations team. This is what empowers us to hunt at scale. Again, we'll look at what the deliverable looks like here. We provide a report that shows what the issue is, where it's located in the system, other security products that were installed in the device, exactly how to get rid of it. And this information about the persistent footholds themselves is also incorporated to Huntress back into the product to help us find these threats more quickly in the future. And also, as we mentioned, we also have the review remediation plan button here in the upper right. Once you click that, you're gonna get a prompt, click approve, and the Huntress agent will be tasked to automatically perform those actions on your behalf. And we find things that bypass every AV out there. This one had CrowdStrike involved. This one had SentinelOne. This one had Sophos, and that's just to name a few. But we could do this all day. We could show you redacted reports where we're cleaning up what all security preventative tools are missing. The point here isn't to shame or belittle those particular tools, but just to highlight that there is consistently problems which are missed by these tools because they're looking at different things than we are. But that's not all we do. While attackers are out there evolving their tactics, we're also evolving our platform to be able to better hunt them. In addition to Huntress for persistent footholds, we scan the endpoints for open and misconfigured ports, like RDP, to reduce the overall attack surface. We have the agent deploy ransomware canary files in the form of hidden files that the agent monitors for early detection in the case of a ransomware attack. And most recently, we introduced Managed Microsoft Defender. This service is still in public beta, but it makes the native version of Microsoft Defender usable at scale. All of these things are included with Huntress. They're in one package, one pricing. If you do have any other questions or concerns, please reach out to your WAMS representative. Thank you.